DC is treating it like it's a huge deal. Brian Michael Bendis is coming to DC and he's taking over Superman. And on paper, it's a huge deal.
I mean, this hasn't happened since John Byrne.
Right.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Hello, good evening. Hi, Dal, how are you?
Good. I hope everyone can hear me this time. I was a little quiet on the last episode.
Literally, that's the joke I was just going to make.
Oh, gosh.
I was going to repeat everything you said.
I can barely hear you.
To make sure people could in fact hear you.
Sure.
Wow, last week's episode was, boy, that wasn't fun to edit.
I can imagine.
But it was
I got to
necessary.
walk out of the room at a certain point. It was nice.
Yeah, I feel pretty bad because you were a major part of that conversation and then you didn't exist. And the editing process turned last week's episode from a conversation to an interview.
Mm-hmm.
I just got enough of what we had said to understand what Brian was about to say.
Mm-hmm.
And there were certain points where I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I just said, drop this section. I have no idea what it was.
There's no context for this. It's just a sentence.
While talking to people about it after the fact, people had suggested that I should have just arbitrarily put in things like, that did not answer my question. What are you talking about? Like, just random, unrelated things to make him look bad.
I think what you should have done, and what would have maybe saved you a whole lot of time, is just dropped in, like, Peanuts adult voices to everything that wasn't Brian.
I did. I also I made that joke as well. Yeah. And then just have him respond.
Yeah, just drop in, like, 45 seconds of that, and then he's like, yeah, no, we do something similar at my store.
What was the most disappointing was the amount of times in which we were talking that he was just laughing at something, presumably funny, or like he just thought was ridiculous.
Probably
that I had to cut out because I didn't know how to. I'm like, I don't know what we said there.
Yeah.
So everything that made us look good had to go away.
That's fine.
But it's
not about putting ourselves over, Patrick.
No, I know. It's about explaining.
It's what's best for the business.
It's about explaining the decisions that inform our business because this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast on the Yak Channel Podcast Network here in Chicago. I am Patrick Brower.
And I'm W. Dal Bush.
Collectively, we own and operate Challengers Comics and Conversation, also, coincidentally, in Chicago.
I mean, not that coincidentally. Like, it's good to live in the same city or town that your store is in. For a variety of reasons.
When I worked in the suburbs, I would hate being out socializing in the city in which I work and have people recognize me for my job.
Sure.
And it would make me like, I don't want to go to this movie theater because it's in the city where I work. Let's go to this theater instead or whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess it's different when it's ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I like feeling a part of, Bucktown or Logan Square or Wicker Park where a lot of our customers live and work. I think it's cool to be involved in the community to that extent, where you feel a sense of ownership of the neighborhood.
I also think it's important that we put our money back into the same neighborhood.
I like doing that.
Yeah. People spend their money with us. We are a mom and pop store, and they're supporting us, and we take that money and support all the same local businesses in our area.
Yeah, we don't necessarily shop small. We'll shop at, Target or whatever, but I always feel like that's better than something like an Amazon because at least it's providing jobs in my community. They might not be great jobs, but they're at least jobs. But, giving money to Amazon, I don't know how much Amazon puts into the local economy. Beyond taxes and stuff, I don't know. Do they have, even the warehouses they have, the things I've read are that the conditions are not
They're
great.
terrible.
And that they're not, it's not a one-to-one shift of all these jobs that got lost by businesses that went away, ended up at Amazon. Like, no, a lot less of those jobs exist now. That's part of Amazon's model, is automating a lot of those jobs away.
But I always feel a sense of pride in the fact that we live and spend and operate in the same town. We live blocks away from the store in which we run.
Yep.
Anyway, that really went a little direction that I wasn't planning on. I was still going to do the middle of the, hey, if you like this podcast, or if you're new to this podcast, we have 350-something older episodes you can catch up on. It may be interesting to jump back a few years and see what the nature of the business was like then.
And if you don't live nearby the store, and you don't care about keeping your money local, we do have a Patreon that you can support. It's patreon.com/challengers. That is the official Patreon just for the Contest of Challengers podcast. That doesn't really affect the store in any way, but it allows us a little bit of flexibility to keep doing these new episodes, and it allows us to support a lot of things and people we like on Patreon.
And there's some podcasts I follow and I support on Patreon, and they do their tiers are based off of an episode-by-episode basis. Do you want to give $1 an episode, $2, $5, whatever? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot, especially if you don't know. Like, if they're committed to doing 4 episodes a month, or like 1 a week, you can at least budget a little better. But sometimes, what if there's a special episode? Or
yeah, it's always hard for me to say what the value of something is, especially when it comes to entertainment, because it's up to the individual person. There's things that I love that I would pay 3 times as much for, that another person would be like, I wouldn't even pay regular price for that. I don't care.
But my point is, we don't do that. We just have straightforward $1 level, a $2 level, a $5 level, and these are monthly.
Yeah,
and that's all. Obviously, people can do what they want as far as pledging if they want to.
Sure.
But because it is the start of a new month, and it is a reward level on Patreon where we thank you publicly on this podcast, so we're going to do that now. Here are the February thank yous. Do you want to do one and I'll do one? You want to go back and forth?
Sure.
I feel like people don't necessarily get to pick who says their name, so at least this way we varied up a little bit.
Sure. This month I'm going to say thanks George Brower.
I will say thanks Artie White.
I'm going to say thanks to Mike Romanenko.
Thanks times 4 to the entire Springham family. Or
I think we should have alternated all 5 members of the Springham family.
Oh, okay, fine. Keith,
Margie,
Logan,
Malcolm,
Blackagar Boltagon, a.k.a. Zero.
Yeah. So you get to do 3 there. So then I'm going to say thanks to Jose Villagomez.
I will say thank you to Mitchell Davies, the co-owner of All-Star Comics in Melbourne.
Okay, then I guess I'm going to go back one and say thanks to Thomas Nagovin.
What do you mean back one? We're just doing that at the top of our heads.
No way, you skipped over. You were I don't want to mention Thomas Nagovin, so it's like, all right, I guess I'll say it then. I think Tom and I are friends. I don't know.
Then why wouldn't you talk to him on the phone when he called last week?
Oh, it just sounded like a lot of work.
And thank you to Jacob Sorelli, who is the owner of Kamikaze in Tel Aviv, Israel.
Tel Aviv, Israel.
So thank you for listening and for supporting.
Thanks, everybody.
And it's extra weird to me when it's other comic store owners who are pledging.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it seems like because of the Marvel stuff that we were talking about a few weeks back, we ended up on a lot of people's radars. So I guess that's cool. I always thought of what we were doing was more like, informative for the fans out there who, watch the sales charts and want the business details, the sort of the same way some movie fans will pay attention to like box office results and who's in charge of studios in a way where it's like, that shouldn't affect the medium that you're enjoying, but
sure. Some
people really care about the nuts and bolts. I never thought of it as a thing where like other store owners, like people lateral to us basically in the hierarchy of the industry, would think it had value. So that's cool. Real quick though, speaking of Patreon, we always joke about, we'll frequently joke about doing like Patreon exclusive episodes, usually in the form of like some horrible thing to torture one of us or the other. And we usually don't do Patreon exclusive episodes.
How have any of our extra episodes tortured you?
I don't think they have, but we really don't do them a lot. We don't do Patreon exclusive episodes on the regular.
What people get at the $2 and up level is the unedited version of a podcast, except when it's an interview.
Sure, because there's stuff that's not meant to be.
It's not fair to the guest.
Yeah, you and I have. I'm okay with literally anything I say here going out. I don't care.
Yeah,
so I'm not offended or.
So there was no episode last week for Brian Hibbs because Oh, also, the unedited audio. It would have just been him talking.
You should have put up the unedited audio of us that was just like a blank recording for like 55 minutes. Here you go. There's everything we said. Enjoy.
And that always goes up before the polished one goes up.
Sure.
Usually a day before.
The times that we've done Patreon-exclusive episodes, it's usually something where this will go up later in a week. Like, there will be a week where you get 2 because there's this bonus one.
Yeah, like if I have an interview that runs long, the second part will be midweek as opposed to his second episode.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like, when I talked to Terry Gant, hour 2 was all metal and wrestling.
Right. So, my thought was...
Which some people like better than the first one.
My thought was occasionally doing, like, maybe not a Patreon-exclusive episode, but like a Patreon-first episode.
Every episode is technically.
Well, but I mean something that has a longer delay between when you would give it to Patreon people and when it would end up within the stream of episodes. It could be a bonus one. It could take a place of a week, whatever. My thought specifically was, you and I go to see all the superhero movies that come out, and we usually don't talk a lot about it on the podcast because it's not really business related. It's usually something where we're coming at it more from fans, people who enjoy the movies.
Sure.
Should we start doing them?
No, and here's why.
Okay.
It's way too much extra work for me.
What I was going to say was...
And also, it's not worth the very little money we get from Patreon.
Sure. Well, I guess to speak to the first part, this would be something that would be more raw audio. This isn't necessarily a legit episode. It would be like a bonus one that might be a non-numbered episode that would go out in the stream of episodes. To specifically say, look, if you don't care about Black Panther or Avengers Infinity War, you can just skip this one. Or if you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely skip this one because we're going to talk about it at length. Because I know that there's been some times where I've had people specifically ask me, like, are you going to talk about this? And I am fully prepared to, but you seem like you don't want to, not only for the 2 reasons you just have, but the third, I never feel like you want to talk about a movie that long. Like, you don't want to talk about a movie you just saw for 45 minutes.
Yeah, on the one hand, I don't feel that deserves to be a regular episode because it's not under the auspices of what we do.
And I wouldn't mind if it was just like 25 or 30 minutes, like essentially in the ride back.
Look, we've said that before, and they always wind up going longer than a regular episode.
That's why if we did it in the ride back,
yeah, but
you know how long the drive is between the studio and show place.
Bad for, like, we only do car episodes when we have to.
Sure.
And I don't know that people enjoy listening to them because of the regular car music.
Well, maybe people can let us know if this is something you want. If you're someone who is a Patreon supporter, I don't know, let us know if this is a thing.
And as far as making it an unnumbered episode, I have a hard time doing that.
Okay.
Like, when we switched over to Season 2, and it was 2.1, 2 point whatever.
Right. Eventually, we just gave it a number.
Right, we rolled it back, but I counted every episode. And that includes, like, the 7-minute ones from the beginning.
And the ones that I think that were like, part of 24-Hour Comics Day, I think.
Well, no, those were...
point episodes?
Those were all put together into one.
Okay.
So that didn't...
Okay.
That didn't change. Like, we didn't release them. Or they weren't numbered like that. Those didn't count. But, like, we did episode 100 and then episode 100.1. So, when we adjusted the numbering, like, we didn't go from 100.1 to 102, 101. We did, but, like, around episode 150, we adjusted the numbering.
Sure. Marvel makes up numbers all the time when they need to.
Right,
I think
but
it's
I
perfectly
don't.
fitting for the comics industry, for the Contest of Challengers podcast, to have numbers that are basically not 100% accurate.
We were told to ditch the numbering all along when we joined the Yak Channel Podcast Network.
Sure. Which I disagree with, but I don't run a podcast network.
The numbering can scare people off, and people don't want to start a podcast.
I don't care.
Although I think our recent numbers show differently. But otherwise, I haven't. I don't put it in the title, but I put it in the subtitle.
Sure.
So if you get to the podcast from our website, the link is Contest of Challengers 357, or whatever this week will be. I don't even remember off the top of my head. And it's always in the Libsyn description as well. So I still keep track of it. It may not be called, because on our website, they're all under the group heading Contest of Challengers.
Yeah.
So I agree it doesn't make sense to go to the Contest of Challengers tab and have every item on the webpage start with contests or challengers, you know where you are.
Sure.
That's fine. But just so long, and I keep it in my notes as well.
Okay.
So when we joined Yak Channel a year and a half ago, whenever that was, we ditched the numbering of the titles, and the titles have been trying to become a little bit more
Descriptive?
more
enticing?
enticing, thank you. Not just like a 2 or 3 word title,
Right.
but something that has a little more of a hook.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a couple of great hooks recently with the Marvel downturn, with the mysterious package in the mail.
Uh-huh.
And those are, and like literally my favorite was, well, we found out what's happening with our lease or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't put it in the title to make you listen, but it was early in the episode, so I don't feel bad, as opposed to a lot of headlines at the wrestling websites I go to that literally the headline will be "Spoiler is at Raw," and you click on it and it'll have like Chris Jericho's at Raw at the end, like that's the whole article. Like,
Yeah.
you could have saved me the click, but no, you need the clicks.
That's the whole reason they exist, is the clicks.
But anyway, we are far away from topics, plural,
Topics.
at hand for this week. We're already 16 minutes in, and we haven't even mentioned the 3 major things that have happened in the comics industry just the last couple of days, and several of them were announced just today, which is why we're recording today.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So let's start with the sale of Valiant Entertainment.
Yeah, that was an earlier in the week thing. Valiant has been owned a majority share by I believe it's a Chinese investment group that's also a production company. It was an attempt for them to have some properties they could more easily turn into movies and TV shows and other media properties.
Or outfits for Winter Olympics.
Yeah, but they now are the sole owner of Valiant as a comics publisher. In fact, the previous 3 owners are now all out of the company in favor of new management. The comics publishing side of it, I guess, is mostly still there. I haven't heard anything about changes in that department. The main guy now, who I guess is in charge of Valiant for the Chinese media group, DMG, I think, is that maybe the name of the...
Let's just say yes.
Yeah. I'm going to try and dig up some more info.
See, I was trying to...
No, I'm going to keep talking while I'm doing it.
Okay.
And now you ruin the flow, so now you just called attention to it. But it sounds like it's a thing where he specifically had said that he wants to keep the comic side doing what the comic side does because he bought it, or the company bought it, to be turned into other media. So the comic side can do the comics thing because that's not... They don't care, basically.
And they keep referencing the hundreds of characters.
Yes.
They call Valiant the largest comic catalog behind Marvel and DC.
Yeah, not to dial it all the way back, but when Valiant was first brought back, it was basically brought back to be a new Marvel, to be a group of characters that could be exploited for movies and TV shows. That was the appeal, and there were people involved in the funding and getting it off the ground that were from Marvel. So they basically saw an opportunity to do another Marvel sale. And they did. They got their money. They got, I don't even know how much, but they definitely got a lot of money to sell Valiant. Right now, it's fine. It's kind of business as usual in the DMG Entertainment, by the way.
I never doubted you.
I doubted me. It's basically a business as usual situation right now because Valiant was always about trying to make movies and TV shows. Harbinger and Bloodshot have been talked about as potential film franchises, leading to a Harbinger Wars crossover movie for, I feel like, a decade now. It hasn't been that long, but it feels like forever that they've been pointing in that direction. One of the neat things is that Dan Mintz, DMG CEO, had said is that he wants to, here's a quote, "I'm also looking forward to bringing the writers," meaning comic writers, "close to the filmmaking process, which is something that is also important, and not keeping them siloed into the comic book area." So, I mean, that sounds like good things, and certainly having Valiant bring in the screenwriter for Arrival to do stuff like Secret Weapons, he's also the guy who's doing, like, the Bloodshot script and the Harbinger script. Like, they're having some cross-pollination between those, and hopefully tapping people like Matt Kent, Rafer Roberts, and maybe even like a Daniel Kibblesmith to say, you're writing these characters, how? What are the stories that you tell? How are you telling them? What's important about these characters? That's cool stuff. The part of me that has a longer memory remembers a point where Valiant was doing pretty well, and they got bought by a company specifically to turn Valiant characters into popular parts of other mediums. And when those didn't pan out, Valiant kind of went away for a long while. Valiant got bought by Acclaim back in the day, and they were going to turn them into video games, and Acclaim as a company didn't do super great, not just because of Valiant, but because of other things. But when Acclaim went away, Valiant went with them. It didn't matter how well Valiant books might have been selling. They probably weren't selling great at the time. The whole industry wasn't doing super well. When you become like a small part of a major company like that, your fortunes are tied to things that are completely out of your control. At a time where a lot of movie studios are looking at the idea of an interconnected cinematic universe as a thing that's incredibly difficult to do and very, very easy to lose millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on, having Valiant's new owners say, yeah, we're going to do a big cinematic universe is like, oh man, the degree of difficulty on that. DC's having a tough time doing that with characters like Superman. I don't know that characters like Bloodshot are a step in the right direction. In theory, it's a blank slate. People don't have any preconceived notions.
Yeah, I think without
hand,
expectations, it's maybe a little bit easier to...
Yeah, I've been reading Bloodshot comics since the first Bloodshot comic came out, and I don't know that I ever looked at it and said, you know what, this would make a good movie. Never once. I don't. Bloodshot's fine. Bloodshot's been done well. But yeah, man.
But you definitely thought that about Ninja K.
Ninja K.
And then when Valiant eventually came back to publishing, it was without half of their characters. They lost all their licensed characters.
Yeah, they didn't have any of the Gold Key characters. So they weren't able to use characters like Solar or
Turok.
Magnus or Turok. So they had to make do with the characters that were created, like Bloodshot and Rai and Harbinger and Quantum and Woody and Ninjak and on from there. And I mean, look, they're good characters. I think the comics are good. We don't do tremendously well with Valiant stuff, so I'm not looking at this in a, either this is going to be huge for us because we're going to sell so much more Valiant stuff when they start having movies out. Nor am I looking at this like, oh man, our business is going to tank when Valiant goes away and all these sales disappear. Like, I don't think it would impact us hugely one way or the other. Valiant as a publishing house has been very good to us. They've been very kind to us. They've helped us out with events. They've been incredibly receptive to our experiences selling their books. So I hopefully everyone who's working on the publishing side, A, keeps their jobs, B, makes a bunch more money. I'd like both of those things to happen.
Valiant
in
as
that
a
order.
company really goes out of their way to help retailers. And I think they and Oni especially really try hard to educate the retailer, and they acknowledge that the retailer is their customer, that the comic reading public is our customer. So Valiant especially was willing to give any store that asked a full set of the first volumes of all their trade paperbacks for free to read, to learn, to give to the staff, to do whatever, to sell if you wanted, to put in your book rentals service if you wanted. To build a fort out of.
One of the cool things about how Valiant had been operating the last few years is when they got, when DMG bought 57% of their company and they had a huge influx of capital, some of that was obviously to grease the wheels for the movies and TV shows they want to do, but it felt like the publishing side of it still mattered, that they wanted to put that into building the publishing side for whatever reason. I mean, you could attribute it to, creating bigger market share so they could go to Sony and they could say, hey, these are big deal books and they do well and whatever. Or you could, I always thought part of it had to do with, the people involved, their former CEO was a guy who genuinely cared about the publishing side. Not solely, but that was important to him. So the publishing side got money to do things that companies 5 times their size weren't doing as far as promotions go. Like the huge outreach they would do in the direct market. I hope that keeps going. I hope that... I don't expect it to get bigger necessarily, but I hope that they're still able to do the kind of moonshot things that they've been doing the last 5 or 6 years. I think that's been great, and I hope that doesn't get dialed back in favor of, well, the company's sold now, so mission accomplished, so let's just make movies and TV shows, and let's not care so much about the book. Who cares about the books? We made the books. The books are done.
I love seeing the giant stand-ups they're sending around to stores for different properties like Shadow Man or EXO. We don't get them, but we shouldn't get them because we don't
use
earn them.
Well,
and we wouldn't use them.
They're gigantic, and we don't have a store that we can house them in, basically. But we've done stuff with them, like we've done the 4001 AD time capsule lockbox. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I really hope in the near term the publishing side remains, I don't want to say a priority, but remains very important to Valiant's vision of what, and no pun intended, I guess, Valiant's vision of what their company is. Long term, I get a little nervous. Sometimes it works out. I know a lot of people had said, and this could still happen, that when Disney bought Marvel, it would inevitably the publishing side of it down and just license out the characters. But that hasn't happened. So maybe Valiant gets a long time to tell their stories.
No. But I agree. I'm going to miss Dinesh as the head of Valiant and his passion and his commitment to comics.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he'll take some of that buyout money and we'll see something else from him. You know?
Yeah.
I think that'd be
it's
cool.
Too bad Marvel already announced a publisher in John Nee. They could have just waited a few weeks.
Maybe. So that was a big deal news thing. It doesn't hugely impact us, but I thought it was interesting that it happened, and certainly it has a few different directions it can go in, positive and negative. But later in the week, in fact, just earlier today, DC, I guess, decided that February 1st was the day that they would announce all of their major publishing news. So that was nice of them to just load it all into one day.
Yeah, well, there had been some issues because customarily DC Comics has 2 different Free Comic Book Day comics for Free Comic Book Day in May, and it's also customary for both Marvel and DC to not tell you what their books are and just have you order them as they're classified.
Yeah, like they might tell you like a character, but they won't tell you both stories, and they won't tell you the creators. There was a point where we had heard rumors that the Spider-Man comic that would be coming out for last year's Free Comic Book Day would feature a Dan Slott, Stuart Immonen story, and it turned out it was actually for a different Spider-Man book, a Chip Zdarsky Spider-Man book.
Yeah, so things change often, but this year DC only had 1 book listed, and right after we turned our orders in, we found out that one Free Comic Day book is a Superhero Girls comic.
Yeah, traditionally DC does a gold level and a silver level book, and one of those is an all-ages title, and one of those is more of like a standard DC Universe title. Like last year, I think it was Superhero Girls was the all-ages one, and the first New 52 Suicide Squad was the DC Universe book.
No, that was 2 years ago. It was Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah, it was the Wonder Woman issue 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And was Superhero Girls? Am I thinking that right? Okay.
It's been so they've done a Superhero Girls giveaway book. This will be the 5th time.
Jesus. Good for them.
And the thing about
franchise.
this one is that it's usually that they're just like the first chapter of one of the graphic novels.
Yeah.
Well, this is a graphic novel that just came out this week.
Okay.
Which is going to be the free book in May.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
But they didn't have a second one.
Yeah, and I think we'd heard that it was a case of, like, they couldn't get it together in time for solicits.
Yeah.
I mean, without knowing too many of the details, that was just the, like...
Look, we're working on it.
Yeah.
We can't tell you just yet. We promise it's going to be big.
Yeah.
And they announced it today, but it's not a Free Comic Day book.
Right.
It is a book that DC is putting out themselves.
Yes.
At, for us, Free Comic Day prices.
Right. It's coming out May 2nd, which is the Wednesday before Free Comic Book Day. It is DC Nation number 0, because DC Nation will be a free fan magazine that DC will be distributing to comic shops, and it'll be available digitally. I don't know if I don't think we'll get it for free, but it's possible.
DC Nation 0?
No, upcoming, the DC Nation magazine.
Oh, yeah, no, I believe that is. I think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I think so.
Okay. But that'll be coming in June. DC Nation 0 comes out in May. It's a 25-cent issue, and it's got, I think, 3 stories they've announced that are in it.
3 stories plus a look at the regular DC Nation magazine.
Yeah, so it might have some like interview stuff
but
or preview things.
The 3 stories
are killer.
Are blockbuster.
Yeah, the first one is a prelude, and these are all stories that are not from comic books. They won't appear again in print until the collections of these stories come out. So this isn't like the first 3 pages of something or the first 5 pages of something.
These are 8 to 10 page stories.
These are original stories that lead into big storylines. The first one
You know what? 8 to 10 pages, that's not correct. 8 to 10 pages are what the Action 1000 backup stories are.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how many pages this is.
So, and it may vary. The first one is a lead-in to the Scott Snyder, James Tynion, Francis Manapul, somebody else.
Josh Williamson,
Justice League No Justice storyline that is going to be a weekly event, I think in May. So that'll be the first story. The second story is a story by Tom King and Clay Mann that features the Joker finding out Batman and Catwoman are getting married.
Oh my god, doesn't that sound like the best story?
It sounds like the best story, which will be leading into the Batman 50, which is the wedding issue for Batman and Catwoman. I can't remember when that's coming out. I think May or June?
July?
No. Is it? Yeah, July 4th. It's coming out July 4th.
Yeah.
And then the third story is part of a larger announcement today, and that is a story by Brian Michael Bendis and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez that leads into the 6-issue weekly series that'll be coming out between Action Comics 1000 and Action Comics 1001 called Man of Steel by Brian Michael Bendis and a murderer's row of artists and Jason Fabok. I used that joke earlier today with somebody.
Linked together covers by Ivan Rice.
Ivan Rice, yeah. The main artists, I'm going to see if I can remember them all. It's Ivan Rice, it's Ryan Sook, it's Adam Hughes.
It's Doc Shaner. It's Kevin
McGuire and Jason Fabok.
I apologize if you were trying to do it and I was cutting you off.
No, you definitely got... I kept forgetting about Doc Shaner and Kevin McGuire. Huh. Those are the ones where I'm always like, and other guys I like. Which is a 6-issue series that'll be coming out, I think, basically just after No Justice ends. So it'll be coming out starting May 30th, and it'll be 6 weekly issues leading up to Superman #1 by Brian Michael Bendis and Ivan Reis, and Action Comics 1001 by Brian Michael Bendis and Pat Gleason, which is part of a larger announcement, which is that we had heard some weeks back that, Brian Michael Bendis had signed an exclusive contract with DC, and clearly they had big plans for him. And we'd heard he's getting Superman with Ivan Reis. And we took that to mean he's going to be taking over the Superman book with Ivan Reis. What I don't think we'd realized was that, no, he's basically getting Superman as a character.
Yeah, the Superman corner of the universe. I don't know how this will affect, like, Super Sons.
I would assume that anything super related basically has to go through Brian Bendis. Like, he's doing Superman Weekly as a character.
Well, no. Both of those books go monthly.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were still bi-weekly.
No.
Oh, that's less impressive then.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And... not counting the 6 weeks of Man of Steel, there's a huge gap between Action 1000 and 1001. Yep. And then Superman #1 is even out later.
Yeah, Action Comics 1000, which they may have a Superman issue out after that, but I'd be kind of surprised if they did. That comes out mid-April?
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah.
So you've got basically 6 weeks of no Superman comics coming out.
Yeah. That's the weird part to me.
That's kind of huge.
And we need these to launch huge.
Well, yeah, because they have to Superman and Action have to sell twice as much, because we're getting half as many of them.
Yes. that was my biggest takeaway from this.
Sure.
And
maybe they will. I don't know. Like, the jury is kind of still out on how big a deal is this. DC is treating it like it's a huge deal. Brian Michael Bendis is coming to DC and he's taking over Superman. And on paper, it's a huge deal.
I mean, this hasn't happened since John Byrne.
Right. But Superman's a weird character in that it almost... I feel like the distance between the floor and the ceiling is so narrow. Like, it's never going to drop so low, but it feels like even when they put a killer team... Like, they put Jeff Johns on it, and those sales did not skyrocket. They thought they were going to go up to the stratosphere, and for us, they went up...
Do you mean Jeff Johns and John Romita Jr.? Is that the arc?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't want to lay it on the feet of like John Romita Jr. because you could make the argument like maybe JR was the problem.
No, I was just trying to figure out if it was that Jeff Johns or if it was Jeff Johns, Gary Frank.
Even
Jeff
the other
Johns.
time, like I don't remember. I mean, it's been a long time since the Richard Donner stuff was coming out, but even then, it didn't feel like it was a huge deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they were good books, especially that Legion of Superheroes story. Man, oh man, was that good!
I was waiting for that mention,
but. The rest of it, I don't know, like, I hope that this is a huge deal. I hope it gets a ton of people who don't read Superman to go, I gotta check out this thing. And giving Superman a new #1, I'm sure that'll bring a few people in who just will see the #1 and go, Superman #1, sure. The things I'm not crazy about is the Justice League thing and the Man of Steel thing are both weekly series. And we're already 4 chapters into the Avengers Weekly thing and feeling the frustration with it.
Yeah, there's no win. It's either you order too few and keep selling out, or you order too high, like Jesus with Venomverse,
Sure.
or with actually the Phoenix Resurrection. I think we wound up doing okay on.
Yeah, we probably could have ordered a few more ones, but I felt like the 3, 4, and 5. I don't know about 5 yet, but 3 and 4, I was like, I'm okay with this. And we didn't get a lot of like requests for it. There weren't people saying, I gotta get that issue of Phoenix Resurrection.
But it's taken us 5 issues of Avengers to get numbers hopefully right. We'll see this week.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is even when you think you got the numbers right, once they start dropping, you got 3 issues of the numbers not being adjusted.
Yeah.
And then, so you're constantly fighting that, and which is why a lot of stores will order conservatively. Like, it's better to sell out and disappoint people than it is to get stuck with a bunch of books and lose money.
Yeah, and honestly, the number of people that have jumped onto Avengers as it already started,
Yeah.
just, man, that doesn't help us at all.
No.
At all.
So I would love to see DC be smarter about this, both for the Justice League 4-issue thing and the 6-issue Man of Steel thing. And I make it returnable. Like, make it something where if we guess wrong, we're not going to get burned on this. Otherwise, we have to be conservative. Like, I want to get behind it. I want to be excited. Like, we talked about the Justice League numbers. And, you know, we kind of hypothesized, like, should we go at Metal numbers? Like, this is coming out right after Metal's done, and it's the next big thing from Scott Snyder.
But it's only a 4-issue series, and the way that our clientele is, somebody's going to walk in and have 4 issues in their box and be like, I didn't realize they're this fast. I don't want all
Yeah,
these. It's
I'm
too
expecting some Avengers copies to go back on the shelf when people show up and go, why do I have 5 of these? And it's like, well, because it went weekly. Well, they didn't know that, and they don't want it weekly. They don't want 5 issues waiting for them.
And it doesn't matter that you put it in an email and told everybody.
They didn't open that email.
We can't make people read emails.
No, doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter that they said it in the back of Avengers 674. They didn't read the back of that either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they just don't want it.
However, the first, I don't know how many issues it's been so far, 4. Pepe Larraz is doing the art of his career.
Sure, it was
it's
a good month for him. Yeah,
it's amazing.
He's a young gun.
And I have been enjoying this.
I think it's okay.
It's really just
Bunch of fight scenes.
right, but it's just Secret Wars from the other side.
How do you mean?
What was the plot of original Secret Wars?
Bunch of heroes and villains fight?
Yeah, pulled to a different planet,
Oh, yeah, I guess.
fighting to win a thing.
Sure.
That's exactly what this is. Or if you want Contest of Champions, but not. But again,
it
it's
feels
just
like
that,
a real generic comic book to me because it's, you know, an end of the world scenario, a bunch of heroes fighting a bunch of villains. I don't care about the villains a whole lot, and I don't care about, like, the few secrets they've brought up. Like, the Voyager thing, I think is only fun in that they completely did triumph again and went, yeah, we did triumph again. Like, they more or less said that in the comic book, and I thought, that's ballsy. It's ballsy to say, yeah, we're just doing this other company story again that Mark Waid worked on, so it's not like he's, you know, he's got his fingerprints on that character, but still, it's like, all right,
but
whatever.
we already did it once before.
Yeah.
With Sentry.
Yeah. Sentry was a little different. I mean, that felt like it was doing a slightly different thing. Yeah, but weekly stories, man, they are, and it's very hard to buy in on it because the risks are so much greater than the rewards. So, yeah, if they tell me something like Justice League, no Justice is returnable, I order it like it's Doomsday Clock. If they tell me it's not returnable, I order it like it's one of the Metal tie-ins.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
That's fair.
And if you look at the sales charts, huge difference between those two things.
Oh, sure. I think we need to adjust our Doomsday Clock numbers.
You think?
Yeah, I don't see it selling.
2 keep selling. Those stacks are going down.
How's 3 doing for you?
It just came out.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, 2 took about a month, but we're getting there, and it will keep selling. And 3 has 2 months to sell before the next issue comes out. So we'll have a month's worth of data before we have to do final order cutoffs on issue 4.
I'm sorry, I'm only ordering exactly what we've sold moving forward.
Okay, that's smart.
That's what we do for everything else.
But there are books, and we found it with Metal. I mean, how many times have we had to order multiple printings of Metal where it's like, there were weeks where we don't have it. We're out of issue 4 until the next printing comes through, and if we'd ordered more, maybe it would stick around. I don't know, like, there is that risk, and especially with a weekly series, you run that risk of, like, people come in when issue 3 comes out, and if you don't have 1 and 2, they're not going to start the series. And if they only come in every 3 or 4 weeks, you could sell a whole set to someone, just walking in the door. But if you don't have the whole set, you sell nothing. But that's not worth getting caught with 20 or 30 or 40 copies that you guessed wrong on.
Yeah, definitely not those kind of quantities.
And that's the risk, because you have no data. And you've talked for years now about how much pre-order numbers are not reflective of first week sales because so many people will come in and go, oh, can I get that Doomsday Clock thing? Oh, that thing we've had in the window for the last month? Oh, that thing we've sent out emails about? Oh, that thing that's been in the back of DC books for the last 6 months? That Doomsday Clock thing? This is the week you want it? Okay.
Yeah, even a couple of people added all of the New Age of DC Heroes #1s after Damage #1 came out.
The week Damage came out. Oh, can I start getting all the first issues of those? Yeah. I'm real curious how Silencer's going to do. I didn't see a lot of movement on that the week it came out.
No.
But
no.
I don't know.
Well, that was this week.
Yeah, I mean, the one day I was there that it was out.
I tell you, I enjoyed Silencer more than I enjoyed Damage.
Yeah, but, oh man, like, I didn't like either one of them. And, boy, I didn't like the art on Silencer. And it's a shame because the whole point of these books is the artist-first mentality. And it's, like, not the best work of John Romita Jr.'s career.
Well, I'm sure it doesn't help DC that once they announce this initiative and that he's going to be doing this, Image announces he's doing Kick-Ass again.
Right.
So that's got to be tough for them.
Yeah, well, and they're pulling Tony Daniel to do Batman for a few issues, so can't do Damage.
Honestly, that was a disappointment.
For sure. I don't think he's at the caliber of the artists that they've had on that book recently, but...
But, I mean, I think it's...
He did Batman R.I.P., so that can be like a feather in DC's cap. Look, he's doing Batman again. Okay.
Although,
not my favorite work.
Given the choice, like, what if he's doing this instead of Jason Fabok?
Oh, yeah. I guess it's only a matter of time.
No, I'm asking you, what if he's doing this at Batman Arc because Jason Fabok was unavailable or doing something else for DC?
Oh, maybe. I mean...
I'm asking you, are you okay with that?
He's going to end up on a book. DC loves Jason Fabok. It's inevitable he will land on something by a writer I like. He's doing the Swamp Thing thing with Tom King. I got to read that. I'm not going to skip that. Yeah, it was only that, like, I was so bored with Jeff Johns' New 52 Justice League that when he came on, it's like, oh, I can leave now. That's fine. And luckily it was a storyline that, even looking at the covers, all of that, the Darkseid Fourth World stuff, I'm like, oh man, this seems dire. I don't want to read any of this. Never looked back.
So going back to Brian Michael Bendis on Superman and Action.
And that was only part of the announcement of Brian Michael Bendis today.
I assume that what we will do, based off of our new philosophy, is anybody who gets either will now be signed up for both. If you're down for Superman, you're going to get the new Superman, and we're going to put you down for Action.
I don't know that I would do that, because it doesn't sound like they're doing it as like a weekly... Like, if it was a weekly thing, then maybe then. But since it's going to be monthly, they've already said that Superman is like the superhero book, and Action Comics is like the World of Metropolis, supporting cast,
right?
Investigative journalism sort of thing. So
same writer.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would look at Action and go, oh man, if you were liking the Dan Jurgens stuff, this is going like a completely opposite direction. I don't know that I would shift anyone's numbers at this point. That said, anyone who's down for either book, I would make sure they get Man of Steel.
Okay.
Because that's the Superman book for 6 weeks, and you can opt out if you want. But we're gonna have to move to more of a you're signed up for this until you tell us you don't want to, because the alternative is hoping everyone wants it, and then having that person come in and go, can I add this to my list, and then hoping we still have a copy of it, instead of just saying like this until you tell us otherwise.
Isn't that what I just said?
No, that's just for Man of Steel, not for... It sounded like you were saying Superman...
I was, okay. Yeah.
No, I just for the 6-issue miniseries, because that's it. But once they diverge again, I would say what you're down for before you're down for here.
Well, I don't know what the gap is between the end of Man of Steel and the start of...
It sounds like probably the next week a book comes out. I don't know if that's for sure, because they haven't listed, like... I don't think they've listed start dates for stuff coming out in, like, July, which is when this would be coming out, but I would assume issue 6 of Man of Steel, the next week of Superman #1 was hot. I can't imagine you do it another way. You could have it be 3 weeks later, but man, you're losing all your momentum then. You've trained people at that point that every week there's a Superman comic. You've got to have one come out the next week if you want to maintain that.
Well, if they go back to monthly for both,
I guess
that's going away.
But I would think that Action Comics would be like the week after Superman, and then there would be nothing for like 2 weeks. Because then you've already got people, like, hopefully hooked into that story. The cliffhanger that will be at the end of Superman 1 and Action Comics 1001 should be something that makes you want to read issue 2. I hope. But that was only part of the larger Brian Michael Bendis announcements today from DC Comic Books.
The bigger part, for sure.
Yeah, certainly the more immediate impact. The other stuff is that Jinx World is coming over. All of his previous books will start being released digitally by DC. Stuff like Fortune and Glory and Fire and Goldfish. Other stuff that had been running under the Marvel Icon imprint will be published by DC going forward. He promised new issues in, I think, 2018 for stuff like Powers and Scarlet and United States of Murder, Inc. And at least for 2 of those, I'm like, nah, it's okay. They can just be done now.
Wait, you didn't say Brilliant. Dal.
I don't think I did say
Dal,
Brilliant.
you didn't say Brilliant.
I don't think I did. That's weird. And also...
Yeah, honestly, them having all the Jinx World stuff, going back to the Valiant discussion, doesn't mean anything to us as far as sales.
Not really. We were club only on all that stuff, mostly because they only came out once every 18 months.
It had been a long time, and even I personally quit Powers recently, and I've been buying it since the beginning.
It's impossible to know what's going on in that story anymore. Who remembers?
I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care, and them only doing it when they had time made it feel like they didn't care. I'm sure that's not the case, but sorry.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was a priority for the creators, and I know in the letter columns they would talk about how things would come up, and obviously for something that's creator-owned and creator-produced, when there's something that happens, emotionally or physically to one of the creators, the book has to wait. I get that. But it just seemed like something was always happening, and things were always getting pushed back, and then you'd go, oh, you got 12 issues of Cave Carson out, or, Defenders came out with 8 issues. Where is this other thing? Where is this other book? So it's disappointing as a retailer, and it certainly makes it difficult to say, yes, it's been delayed for 6 months, but I'm definitely going to stock this for the shelf. Like, no, it's okay. I don't feel like it. But the final announcement they had was that beyond writing a bunch of books and beyond releasing creator-owned material, Brian Michael Bendis will also be having his own imprint, a la Young Animal.
Yeah, and not the Jinx World imprint. That's going to be something totally different.
Yeah, but like a part of the DC universe that involves characters that he likes, and it also involves creating characters for that imprint. Some of which he would write, some of which he would oversee in the same way that Gerard Way oversees 3 of the 4 Young Animal books. I think you can start making jokes right now about what book do you think David Mack's going to do, and is Gerard Way going to get mad about losing Mike Oeming, all the other people that Bendis is constantly doing books with who write their own stuff will probably get a look in.
He's also been dropping hints that he and Alex Maleev will be doing Batman.
I assumed, even beyond the Superman stuff, that there will be other DC Universe things that he does. And a Batman miniseries seems like the easiest, dumbest tip-in of an idea.
You say miniseries. A fan had asked him on Twitter if his proposed Daredevil Batman crossover from 2004 can now see the light of day. Mm-hmm. And he said, look at my and Maleev's Daredevil run as just the first half, and you'll add it together when the second half comes out, which is hinting that he and Maleev are having an extended Batman run.
I think you could have an extended run and still have it not be on one of the main titles. Like, you could do it as an extended miniseries, like a series of miniseries format, where you basically do 6 issues, take 5 months off, do 6 more issues, and keep it going as like a series of arcs.
I don't know, maybe he takes over at 101.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like, Tom King has said this is a 100-issue Batman story.
Yeah.
50 is coming out on July 4th. It's at least 2 more years before he's going to be done with that story.
Well, just as well, because Bendis is writing the 2 Superman books. Mm-hmm. He's writing a new imprint book. Mm-hmm. He's promising Jinx World books coming back. He's overseeing the new imprint books.
Yeah.
That's more work than any one person can already do.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd love to see something that's less continuity based, like a book that he and Maleev are doing, given time to get it all done. Like, there's no rush necessarily. It's not like they lack for Batman content.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if it's going to be 20 issues or 30 issues of Batman, just let it work in the background. I think DC as a company can afford to pay 2 guys, and only 2 guys, for material that won't see the light of day for 3 years. And then when it comes out, it comes out monthly. There you go. Maleev's done with it. That could be fine. Yeah, I'm excited about some of this stuff as a reader, and I'm curious about some of it as a retailer. I think a lot of it has potential to do really well for them. Certainly, Metal being finished fairly soon, and Doomsday Clock moving to a temporarily to definitively bi-monthly release schedule means they're going to have some gaps to fill. So a month-long Scott Snyder, Francis Manapul Justice League series, a 6-week Brian Bendis all-star artist.
And then when this is over, Snyder's taken over Justice League, right? Is that not what we heard?
Well, so it's weird because the roster for the 4 Justice League teams are a mix of Justice League members, Suicide Squad members,
Titans members,
Teen Titans members. So it's entirely possible
and Deathstroke and Starro.
Yeah.
Not that Starro has a book now.
That those other books might go away. We know Justice League and Justice League of America are going away. So in theory, this could take the place of some of those books, with Snyder writing, I think they said, without titling it, the main book, which is probably going to just be called Justice League. And then the other collaborators, like James Tynion and Josh Williamson, doing the other teams, with, I would assume, at least one other writer involved. But maybe not. And those might be replacements for things like Suicide Squad and Titans and Teen Titans, or they could just be called completely different things.
Yeah.
And those books could keep going. You'll still get Justice League and Suicide Squad and Titans and Teen Titans, and you'll get 3 new team books by these other creators that are part of a larger No Justice umbrella. And the not rumors, but speculation exists that, Tom King is doing the next big DC event, part of the... What was the name of his? Sanctuary. Yeah, that will be part of that idea, or that idea might see the light of day in. Certainly, I think we're looking at, fall is kind of when Mr. Miracle's wrapping up, so that he could find some time in his schedule then to do a larger project. I wouldn't be surprised to see a big old Tom King DC thing closing out 2018. It would have been nice if it would have come on the heels of Doomsday Clock, but I don't know if they're going to want to wait that long.
Yeah, I mean, Doomsday Clock was going to meet up with the DC Universe at that point, so what changes or adjustments they have to make? Or is it the other way, that now that it's going to be late, they're the ones that have to adjust to what the DC Universe is going to be?
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't feel like Jeff Johns is the guy that you're like, hey, we're changing your story, bud. He's a chief creative officer. He's a much higher level than I think the people who make the publishing decisions. I don't think they get to tell him that his story is going to be different.
Well, they should.
Maybe he's a team player. Maybe he'll be like, all right, sure, I can add in this thing. Yeah, it's tough. Marvel's always gone the route of, if this thing gets delayed, everything comes out anyway, and it'll all just, we'll sort it out in the dub.
Yeah.
We'll fix it in post, which is one of the reasons why they're in the spot they're in, is they stopped caring about the cause and effect of their universe, and people kind of disengaged from it. They got tired of reading epilogues to stories that weren't finished yet. And, I mean, if DC's thinking of going that way, I would maybe caution against that, because you do that, and 2 years later you find out you shouldn't have done that, and it's too late then. You gotta tear it all down and start over.
Well, at least DC is making major changes for what looks, on our end, to the betterment of their publishing and our sales.
Yeah, I mean, the weekly thing's kind of a coin flip, but yeah, the content seems good. There isn't anything yet I've seen that I've gone, oh, don't do that, which I say frequently when I see new publishers' listings. And the DC stuff sounds like it's in line with what people have been enjoying from their books. I don't see any reason why this is going to cause people to defect, or... I say that, but as a fan, like, the risk of the Bendis Superman stuff is that Bendis kind of doesn't modulate his voice on his books. A Bendis superhero comic reads like a Bendis superhero comic. Doesn't matter if it's Spider-Man, Defenders, Jessica Jones.
Yeah, but I have the highest hopes that it won't for this.
It won't what? It won't sound the same?
Yeah, I have the highest hopes that, like...
I hope not too, but...
I hope he's working with editors who have a little more push.
I hope so too, but...
He seems very excited, but he's only ever seemed excited about everything he's ever done, which is the point of...
He's good at promoting his work, man.
Yeah.
He's always seemed like a guy that's good for the company. The problem with the Superman action thing is that if you don't like Bendis' voice, it's an all-or-nothing proposition. You're either on board for his books or you don't want anything to do with them. And having two voices means that there were times that we could go, look, if you don't like what Peter Tomasi's doing, try out Dan Jurgens' stuff, or vice versa. Like the Batman books, if you don't like what Tom King is doing, try Detective Comics. It's very different.
But also very good.
Yeah, I think all four of those books are good in their own way, but you can at least say, well, if you don't like this one, try this one. Maybe you'll be able to say that about Superman in action, but I feel like you're not going to. I feel like if you don't like Superman, it's because you don't like Brian Bendis' take on the character, and that's not going to be different in Action Comics. So that's a risk. Hopefully, it's very few people that will say that, and most people will say, oh, I love what he does. I love his approach to the character. And it's a guy who's never written that character, so it's not like you know, when he comes to do a character on a Marvel book where you're like, I've seen him do a lot of Daredevil stories. I don't need to see him do another Daredevil comic book ever in my life. But Superman, I've never seen him do a Superman story. Could be really cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Sure.
I immediately got excited as a fan.
Sure.
And while I experienced a lot of Bendis burnout
I don't read anything he does
in the
Marvel
last couple
anymore.
years, yeah. I still do Invisible Iron Man. I think it's my favorite of what he does.
I thought you still do Defenders and Jessica Jones, too.
Hold on, I said
sorry.
it's my favorite of what he does.
Okay.
I still get Spider-Man. I haven't liked it in a while. I quit Defenders.
Did you? Okay. Right before the end, huh?
Yeah. It wasn't very good. And Jessica Jones is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the things I don't like about it are the things that I don't like about any of his storytelling as it relates to the bigger Marvel Universe, how Charles Soule had just done a major Purple Man story in Daredevil and put the character at a point where he didn't have his powers anymore. And now here he is back doing his thing. And
I flipped through a couple pages. Is it just... It seems like they're doing the kind of Netflix arc for the character.
yeah.
That's disappointing.
So there. But maybe this reinvigorates him.
I hope so. That was the thing that I think we had both hoped for when they announced this, is maybe the things that we don't like about his Marvel stuff are because he's been doing that job for 17 years. And Marvel has a kind of specific tone for their universe, and DC should have a separate tone. So frequently when you move a guy or gal from one company to the other, you start finding new stories from them. Gail Simone writes a Marvel comic a different way than she writes a DC comic book, you know? And that's fun. So hopefully we'll get that, where writing a character like Superman couldn't be more different than the kind of street-level compromise characters that Bendis traditionally does well on at Marvel. You know, a character like Miles Morales or Jessica Jones or Matt Murdock are more angsty, are more tortured, are more self-doubting. Superman should be none of those things. So if he's doing it right, he's working different muscles. He's exploring different kinds of stories, and certainly doing, you know, a big old Superman story is different than doing an Avengers story even, or a Guardians of the Galaxy story, because they're about different things. And he's a smart guy, and he's a guy who's a fan of these characters, and he risked everything leaving Marvel at this stage of his career to go try out stuff at DC. So hopefully he's doing it because he's got strong ideas about these characters, and he wants to tell specific kinds of stories with them that he couldn't do if they'd given him, you know, Sentry to deal with in Marvel. Like, I'm very hopeful for all these things. He's a guy that's given a lot to Marvel Comics, and he's built a lot of things for them that are incredibly valuable story-wise. So even though I'm not digging his stuff now, I do go into it with optimism for him at DC, and both as a reader and as a retailer.
And he's got more of a connection to Superman than he has for any characters he's written for Marvel before because of his Cleveland roots.
Yeah, I'd rather think today. I think it was probably in some of the DC stuff. I don't know if it was part of their press releases or if it was part of a different interview. But he talked about how he had gone to a Cleveland museum. He was in Cleveland for, I think, his brother's wedding when this deal was being offered to him, and he went to a Cleveland museum with a friend of his and saw all of like the Siegel Schuster stuff, and was like, it solidified for him that like this is working on Superman is a thing that he has a connection to, that he has feelings for.
I read all about this from the article on Forbes.
Maybe that's where it was.
And it was a really good article, a good interview, and I didn't necessarily ever equate Forbes with comic news before.
No, I've seen a few places over the last few months pick up the Bendis story. I saw it across a lot of different like nerd things that don't necessarily cover comics full time. So when they cover a comics thing, it's like, oh, this is a big deal, because they know that they can say to their audience, like, you don't read comics. This is the guy who created Miles Morales. This is the guy who created Jessica Jones. That means something to a larger audience who is less familiar with the publishing stuff and more familiar with the movies and cartoons and TV shows.
One of the specific quotes was that he wants to be additive to the Superman mythos, and he's going to start with a major brand new villain.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing that Man of Steel is more origin stuff, but frankly, the Rebirth Superman has a very confusing origin now, thanks to Superman Reborn.
Yeah.
So I could do with a 6-issue thing that lays out, wait, what is his deal? Because it's like, the problem with the Superman Reborn stuff is they're saying all of the New 52 stuff happened, and we layered onto it all of Superman's history from 1986 to 2011. That also happened.
Yep.
So it's like, this only works if you don't squint too hard.
Well, if you think that's convoluted, so we already have the CW TV shows that have Supergirl, and in Supergirl, there's Superman.
Yes.
So Superman exists in this world.
A very good version of Superman, too. I like him a lot. I wish he was on a little bit more.
But then Sci-Fi is now coming out with their Krypton series.
About Superman's granddad?
Yeah. Krypton before it blows up.
Yeah,
and
like
everything
before
else.
Jor-El's even born.
And then the announcement this week, another new series, Metropolis, set before Superman.
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, from the bit I read, it's Lois and Lex investigating things, so it sounds like it's just X-Files, but they're Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
Which they will totally have chemistry, and Lex will be like the bad boy who she can't redeem, and that adds friction to the future relationship. Is, if only he could have been saved by her or whatever. Just the usual tortured romance garbage, but whatever. That's the third show that I know of that the WB's DC streaming service is going to have. They're doing a live-action Titan show.
Which looks good.
I will give that a watch, and they're doing a new season of Young Justice that I am hyped for.
Yeah.
I love Young Justice as a show. Man, oh man. It got better as it went because they just embraced the larger DC universe, and it just got more bonkers.
But it's just us.
Just us. Yeah, there was back when Comics Alliance was a thing, they were going through the early episodes, episode by episode of Young Justice, and one of the things they caught is that the problem with Young Justice as a TV show is that the team of characters does not have a name. Like in the comic, they ended up being called Young Justice because it was just like, well, that's what everyone's calling us. But since they're kind of like a Black Ops team almost in the TV show, they're just like the team or the squad or whatever. Like they don't have a cool team name. And that seems like, I don't know if they ever fixed that, I don't remember, but if they didn't, then season 3 or whatever, or 4 needs to address that. They have to be called something.
Season 2 was Invasion, and Season 3 was, 5 years later or something?
I think so. It was weird because the way that Cartoon Network, I think, was rolling them out, there were huge gaps, and then like the first episode of one season was like the week after the season finale. So it just came out of nowhere, like, oh, we're doing this. So it was hard to remember, like, I guess this is a new season, even though it's just more TV. And that's even getting out of the point of, like, did they burn an episode because Stephanie Brown was in it? There was during the whole period where it's like, is Dan DiDio just killing things because Stephanie Brown is in them? Weird TV show stuff. One more goddamn streaming service to sign up for. Hooray.
Sure, why not?
Right.
That's how it all works. Hey, this has been Contest of Challengers. Thank you for tuning in. We do have a ton of events coming up, but we did just shoot a video about it yesterday, so all I'm going to do is pull the audio from that and drop it in right here. It's already February. January is gone. February is here, but February is chock full of events right here at Challengers, and this little video is to help you remember exactly everything we have going. First up, and it's a big one, our annual 25% off I Love You, But I've Chosen Comics sale. It runs from Wednesday the 7th all the way through Tuesday the 13th, and not only is everything 25% off, except new this week, held items or previously discounted items, but if you spend $100 before tax, you get a free I Love You, But I've Chosen Comics t-shirt, this year designed by Chris Olsen. That design right there. During the sale, we're going to have Daniel Kibblesmith here signing Quantum and Woody. You remember Daniel as the man who destroyed Christmas. Well, now he's back to wreak havoc on the Valiant universe, and he's going to be here on Saturday, February 10th. Quantum and Woody issues 1 and 2 will be available by then, and issue 1 will be part of the sale, so double bonus. Also during the sale, Monday the 12th, our first ever Women's Comics Night. Right here at Challengers, we're going to have a whole bunch of different activities and all sorts of stuff that I don't even know what because I'm not invited. But it's our first Women's Comics Night, and it should be a lot of fun, and hope you enjoy it. Immediately after the sale is over, and on Valentine's Day, we've got Mike Norton here signing the Mr. Miracle Director's Cut. Mr. Miracle is amazing, Tom King is killing it, and Mike is joining Tom for an 8-page origin story in the director's cut, and he'll be here signing it the day it comes out, Valentine's Day, Wednesday the 14th. And immediately after Mike is here signing, we're going to have a movie night where we watch Captain America Civil War. It's the first appearance of the Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and his movie comes out the very next day, so join us for our first movie night for Cap Civil War. A week later, we have Patrick Trahay from The 12, brand new book from Alterna, only $1.50 the first issue. He'll be signing here on Wednesday the 21st. And we round out the month with the return of our book club, but a book party, and this time it's for Tilly Walden's Spinning. Join us and a bunch of like-minded people in a very casual setting as we maybe have some cocktails, maybe talk about the book. No pressure, no chairs in a circle, just a very casual mingling party with a bunch of people who've read the same book you have. So there you go. There's the events we have set up in February. We hope to see you often.
If people want to see that video, where can they see it at?
It's funny you should ask, because we're going to announce right now our Challengers monthly streaming service. Where it is on
$82 a month.
It is.
You get one 5-minute video.
Oh shit! This one's only 3 minutes.
Filmed in front of. Well, you can put in 2 minutes of outtakes. Filmed in front of our graphic novel bookshelves.
I left in the bit at the end. Yeah, but I cut out the yawning at the beginning.
Good. That was supposed to be cut out.
Right, and I cleverly superimposed text over it.
Cool.
To line up all the dates. So what this is telling me is that you didn't watch it.
I don't. Where can I watch it?
On the Challengers Facebook page, which is facebook.com/ChallengersComics, or on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ChallengersRGo. That is the letter R, letter G, letter O. We can't change it. That's what it is.
No.
Challengers Go.
Could we launch a new channel? Is that maybe worth doing?
Oh, I wouldn't want to because of the history and the subscribers and everything else.
Okay.
And we've got, literally hundreds of videos.
Where am I going to do all my prank videos
channel.
and all of my Let's Play videos? I want them to be found, Patrick. I'm working on my retirement, which is YouTube celebrity.
And we'll put them on our
Challengers
channel.
I don't want you monetizing it that way. No, I want it to be a better branded channel. It says Challengers Comics. At the end of my videos, I can't say Challengers Go and have to explain it. No, that won't work.
Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.